Hey, welcome back to the shop. So, an audible has been called today. We were going to go over valves, but today we are going to go over actuators instead. And not just going over the actuator, we're actually going to talk about inspecting the actuator. Basically, there's a process involved. So, first we're going to start with basically with the parts of the actuator, so that we can get that straightened out, because there is a lot of confusion on what's the piston, what's the rod, so on and so forth. So we're going to get that straightened out right now, and then we're going to go over to actually how you inspect it, what to look for when dealing with your actuator. So once the actuator is removed, first thing you're going to want to know is identifying the parts. So here are the different parts of the actuator. Right here I have a piston, I have an actuator that we are inspecting. I'm going to put up this picture. This is the one I found on the internet. And here, let's go ahead, let's zoom that in so you can see it really quick. Okay, so this is the actual actuator that we're going to use, and we're going to go ahead and flip that over. Now here's a picture of the actuator that we have. I have it already pulled apart, laid out on the table so that you can see it. Next to it I have another actuator as well, but we're going to be talking about the red one. That's the one where I do most of the inspections on. So some of the parts we want to identify as far as the actuator, as you've seen in the first picture, you have you're basically the two parts that you mainly see is the barrel, which is what the actuator slides in and out of, and then you have your rod, which is the chromed piece that you see coming out of the actuator that does the actuation. Now inside the barrel is a piece that is the piston. And around the piston is your piston seals. So you have your piston, the piston is connected to the rod. Now some actuators, the piston and the rod are one mold. And in other actuators like this red one, it's a two-piece, so it actually bolts on. So you have your barrel, your rod, and your piston. Then you have your rod seals. Now the rod seal is the cap that goes into the end of the barrel, and that's what the rod rides in and out of. That also has seals as well. Then you have your piston seals, as I said, that are around the piston. That rides in and gives you that space between the piston and the barrel. Now that we've kind of identified the parts, the rest are pretty self-explanatory. We're going to go into checking each one. So, starting with the piston seal. Now, with the piston seal, you're basically you're looking for a distorted, basically a distorted hole. Well, not so much a distorted hole. If the piston is able to be mounted onto the rod, then what you're looking for is any kind of wear around the piston, and you're going to basically you're going to mic it out. When I use the word mic, I mean measure. So you're going to measure that out. You're looking for any kind of elongation, any distortion. You're looking for the seal to make sure that the seal has seats properly in the space that it's provided. Looking to see if any part of it is eroded. You're looking for nicks and scratches as well for any debris that might have come in from the rod seal. If anything has gotten in there and scratched it up, you're not able to provide that seal properly. Also on the inside of the barrel, if the inside of the barrel has been nicked up, but we'll get to that when we're talking about the barrel. But right now, for the piston seal, any kind of nicks or scratches that may not allow proper seal where oil may get past it in some way. If that oil gets past, then you're going to start seeing a slug, kind of a slowing down of the piston, or it's not able to maintain the load at the full extension. So, and it won't be able to lock that load in place. Then you want to kind of move on. The next thing you're going to want to inspect after you inspect the piston seal, you want to look at the rod seal. So basically that end cap that the rod moves in and out of, you want to look for the rod seal. Same thing. You're looking for distortion. If any part's excessively worn, if the rod had been moving in and out at an angle, eventually it will cause an elongation of the hole, and the seal won't act properly, and oil will start to come past that seal point. And this is basically from either the rod being bent or the load not being carried properly. Because if that shows wear, that's on the outside, then you're almost guaranteed to show the similar wear on your piston inside, and then that pretty much leads to several problems: the distortion of the barrel and whatnot. So you want to do that. That's your exterior visual inspection. The next thing you want to look for is basically your rod. You want to fully extend the rod on your actuator, and you want to look over the rod. You're looking for nicks, scratches, chipped chrome. These rods are made of several different metals, depending on the type. There's aluminum, there's steel, but they're all chrome on the outside. And this chrome, basically, because of the molecules in the chrome are not very porous, and they align very tightly. It allows that oil just to pass over the chrome. You get that just a slight film, but everything is wiped off, so it doesn't really absorb a whole lot. But the chrome is very thin and can flake off if you cause a gouge in the chrome. Again, running into that problem. Now, flakes, gouges, things like that stuff can be taken care of in most instances. It can be buffed out with a very high grit a very fine grit sandpaper. You can take out some of that. Others you may have to mill it down a little bit and then re-chrome it, depending on it. Some, if the gouge is just too deep or there's just too much, you'll have to replace the rod. Now, we'll show here that I have a little video here explaining or showing, as we're going over the inspection. Now, as far as the rod and looking at the chrome, one of the other things you have to look for is discoloration. Metals, when heated past a certain point, will start to show discoloration. This is weakening of the rod. A lot of metals become very brittle when they get to a certain heated point, and that is basically a failure at that point. Some rods will bend, some will just literally just start to break or shear off. So you're looking for discoloration even, and here I know for this particular, this is an aluminum rod with the chrome on the outside, and you can see the discoloration right up there next to the piston. Now, you wouldn't normally see that on an exterior inspection, but when pulling the rod out, there you'll see that discoloration. So after checking that, now there are measurements that basically you can take. The first measurement you're going to dealing with the barrel. When you're checking the measurement for the barrel, you're looking for a distortion. You're basically checking out it's making sure that it's round. In dealing with that, the measurement you're gonna do, a couple of the tools that you're going to use is you're going to use the telescoping gauge, which some people call it a snap gauge or whatnot. It's a little T-shaped gauge that I have here. And you're going to also, in conjunction with that, you're going to use a micrometer. Now, what you do is you take the snap gauge, you place it into the barrel, and you have to do it at two two different angles, basically 90 degrees from each other. So you're going to do it one way, measure it out, and then you're going to do it again and have it facing the 90 degrees, and that will give you a reading basically to tell you if there's a distortion or not. After you basically lock that telescoping gauge in place, you pull it out and you put it to the micrometer, and you basically measure it with the micrometer, and you'll do that each time, writing down the readings that you get. And you'll do that for both sides of the barrels. Now, with these telescoping gauges, they only go in so far. Sometimes you have a really long barrel. So another way to gauge the barrel to get to the parts of the barrel that you've missed is basically using a dial indicator. If you hook the dial indicator up like we have here, hook it up, and this one has a magnet. We're setting it on the table clamp, and basically we have a channel laid in there so that it can spin around, where we try to minimize the amount of surface area that it's touching on either ends of the channel. Kind of oiled it up so it'll spin a little freely. So we'll take the dial indicator, we'll place it down in the middle, and at different points along the barrel, you'll basically spin, and you'll watch for the dial indicator to move, and you're looking for probably about 3/100ths to 3/1000ths. I want to say I think it's 3/100ths of movement in the dial indicator. Anything more than that, you have a major distortion. And then that basically meaning that the oil's getting past the pistons and the piston seal, and it's not working properly. You're getting a ovality to that barrel. So you basically roll it, and you're looking for that distortion. You can take any kind of soapstone or marking pen and mark the areas where you're having that, and you can go back over and check to see if everything lines up with your measurements, showing any kind of distortion. The next thing, after you've done that, you'll want to inspect the inside of the barrel, and like I said before, you're looking for nicks, scratches. It'll be a little difficult to see with the naked eye, but you're looking for anything major that may affect and let oil get past the piston seals. So once you've done that, you can go ahead and move on to the rod. Now, as I said before, you inspected the surface of the rod. One of the things you want to inspect on the rod is basically for its bending or bowing. Now, the bow doesn't always happen like a normal curve. Sometimes you'll get like a crumpling at one end, so you'll kind of see a distortion sometimes on the ends. So when you're doing the rod, same thing with the dial indicator. You bring it down, you're slowly rolling, you're looking for that distortion, that movement, where if the rod is bent and it's hitting the dial indicator, it's affecting the dial indicator, and so you're looking for that little bit of play. And then again, at certain points along the rod, you do that same measurement, and that's going to tell you if it's bowed, if it's crumpled. Now, there is a fix to this. Depending on the degree of it bowing, you can straighten them. These can be straightened. You can't do. I wouldn't recommend doing it yourself. Usually, there's a specialty shop you can take it into. They'll make sure that they can properly straighten with the right amount of heat, where they're not doing any damage to the rod or any of the structure of the rod. But they can be re-straightened and used. Then the next part you want to look at is also you want to look at the piston itself, how the piston is connected. If it's molded, you're not worried about it so much, but if you have, like on this red actuator, the piston is connected to a rod by a bolt. You'll want to remove that. You're going to want to check the clearance from the piston itself to the rod. Now, in this instance, there's a seal that's present so that none of the oil gets past through the rod and through the seal, through the center So you want to make sure that those seals are intact. Sometimes there'll be a rubber seal, sometimes there'll be another kind of metal or some kind of metallic seal. So usually a softer metal. But you're looking, you're checking the seals. You're looking again for distortion, because sometimes the distortion, the piston may be fine, but the rod may have distorted the hole and is not sitting properly on the piston anymore. So you're looking for any of those points as far as that goes. So that pretty much sums it up. When you're running your inspection, you want to do this quite often on your actuators. Keeping an eye on them. And then that's about it. There's not much else to do. A good visual inspection, pull apart. That's the proper way to measure out or mic out your actuators. So thanks for joining me, and we'll see you when we get into some of my later classes. I don't know what I have next. I think it's probably going to be automatic transmissions. So you'll see a couple videos from that, as well as fabrication, and then into my PMI. So stay dirty, and we'll talk to you later. Yeah.